what's good with the YouTube, man? This is the first time pictures of reality. The first time we've done this type of interview. As you guys know, formerly Broken Dreams, we're out there interviewing people out there in the streets, and we're relaunching this channel to focus on those that suffer from addiction and homeless issues and whatnot, man. And I think it's we show a lot of like the negative side of it. People out there in the streets, Brian, and people that are suffering. So I want to get you on there, man, because for one, this was my sponsor that took me through the fourth step, which was really big, man. And this man, he's done time in prison. He's hit rock bottom like myself, desperation and whatnot, and he rose out of that hole, man, to change his life, man. And he continues to be a success, man. He continues to be an inspiration, and he was very inspirational in my life. Helped me out on a lot of different things, man. So welcome to the show, Brian.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So let the viewers know a little bit about your past.
Well, I'm Brian. Obviously, I'm so used to saying I'm Brian, I'm an addict, or I'm Brian, I'm an alcoholic, and I am those things. And I'm from the Bay Area. I'm 45. Currently, I have 9 years of continuous sobriety. February 21st, 2013 was the last day I took any mind-altering substance or drink or anything. And yeah, that right there blows my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a wild road, man. It's been a wild road. I was born in the Bay Area. My father was a cop. My mother died in a car accident when I was very young on the Golden Gate Bridge, and she suffered a head trauma. And the car had a tire malfunction, and it sent the car smashing into the side of the bridge. And everyone had, it was the 70s, so nobody really had seatbelts, so everyone was able to brace themselves with their hands. But I was in her lap, and so she instinctively just kind of held on to me and suffered a head trauma and passed away. So that was one of my first. It was actually a recurring nightmare I used to have when I was a kid. I used to have these night terrors, and I didn't know what it was because no one ever told me the story. And later to find out, someone would tell me, say, "Hey, what happened?" And they said, "Oh, you didn't know about the car accident? Nobody ever told you." And I was like, you know what? That's a trip. I had these dreams about that when I was a kid, and so from a very young age, I was a troubled kid. I didn't have it bad, we grew up, we were middle class, but I had a lot of psychological stuff going on, and that led me to, your vibe attracts your tribe, and vibe was fucked up, and so I always found the troubled kids, and I always found the troubled situations. I always found people, it's funny how you always hear parents say like, "Oh, he's just running with the wrong crowd." It's like, well, where does that all begin? Where does that all start? Like no one wants to say they are the troubled crowd, but
yeah, true.
I was a troubled kid. You always get like parents who go to court. Oh, he's just hanging with the wrong crowd. It's like, where does it start?
See, I went through the same thing. My mom used to make the excuses. My dad, like, you're hanging out with the wrong crowd. And I used to hear those excuses. I'm thinking, man, I'm the one doing the stuff out there. You know what I'm saying?
We create it, everything is a vibration for me. And I had a fucked up vibration, and my vibration always led me to the other kids who were troubled too. And then it was just a symbiotic thing where we would just, there's always going to be one more kid who's willing to say, fuck it a little bit more. And then it just went down. So, I started my drug use at a very young age. About 14, I went right to meth. I went from weed to meth. And then from there, it was on. When I had done my meth the first time, I really felt like I had found something wonderful. Yeah. Like it was something wonderful for me, And it was funny because I was thinking about this last night, and you hear a lot in meetings, people say like, "Oh, you can't half-ass your recovery. You weren't half-assing it on the streets." And the reality is I was half-assing it on the streets. I would do just enough to get just enough what I needed. I wasn't killing it out on the streets, but when I got into recovery, I knew that this was something that I had to absolutely go all out on, like nothing that I've ever done before. And it's funny you say inspire, because that's literally, I write myself a contract every day. For me, success for tomorrow begins the night before.
Oh, wow. That's good. Wow.
I literally sit down with a book, and I have probably hundreds of these books. And so every single day I'll write down where I have failed the day before, where I've failed myself. And that's not feeling like, oh, I didn't do that. It's all about, for me, it's all about, I went to a meeting and there was a guy, it was a Christian meeting, and there was a dude, and he spoke like with such elegance, man, like he was connected to something. And I was so bad. And I go, hey man, how do I get that? Can you give me that? How do I get that? How do I get connected to those? Dude, you're already there. And I was like, oh, fucking guy. No, I'm you know, give me the direction. And he's like, no. He's like, you are there. You don't know. And something in me realized it later on, after many years of sobriety, after very troubled sobriety, was that my conscience has been guiding the next right move my whole life. And so these days, my recovery really is all about sitting down and listening to my conscience, because we all have those two voices inside of us. And we all have those voices that tell us to do these fucked up things that leave us in a state of regret and pain. And then we have our conscience that leaves us with this voice, this thing where it tells us do this. And we say, I don't know that. And when I stopped negotiating with that voice, then I really saw that the next step is really all God is going to give me. He won't give me the whole path, because the whole path encompasses everyone around me. So I only get revealed the next step. So for me, tomorrow's success begins the day before. And I plan it out. See, these are the things that I want to accomplish. These are where I failed myself the day before. And I'll sign it. I mean, I'm down to everything. What minute I'm going to wake up, what I'm going to eat, what I'm going to do, everything. And then I just try to be the best version of these principles that I learned in the rooms of AA and NA. And you know what? It's funny, we're on a recovery channel. And when I first came in here, I didn't know whether I was AA, NA, GA, CA. I didn't know which A I was. And I heard a woman who said, I just want to stay out in front of the DA. And I connected with that.
Yeah.
I don't know whether I'm NA, CA, GA, AA, whatever keeps me out in front of the DA. You know, my last sentence was the judge said 8 years, and I got halftime with the strike. And I asked the judge to give me 2 strikes and let me go that day. And the reason why I did that was because when I had surrendered, I had done a burglary with the ankle monitor on. And I knew I was going into custody, and I had shoved a gold and ruby bracelet into my handle of my bag. And then I had taken a bag of dope and I had stuffed it in my wallet. And so when I went in there, I was already preparing for my relapse. You know, I wasn't really interested in taking money into jail, because I could always stay sober when I went to prison and jail.
Yeah.
And big thing for me was I always thought that I'm not that, you know, I'll go do my term and I'll get out and I'll, you know, put on some size and, you know, I'm doing my time right. But when I got out, I would always fall right on my fucking face. And I always thought about that. You know, I would get out and go to a meeting and it'd be like, I'm not like you guys. I just did a 4-year stretch and I didn't touch it.
Yeah, I can totally relate, man. Like, you remember when I was struggling with going to meetings, right?
Yeah.
That I'd go to NA meetings and I was sizing everybody up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I was like, man, I would have jacked this dude. I would have did this to that person and that. So that's why I remember I used to focus on going to the AA meetings, even though I didn't consider myself an alcoholic. But, you know, how bad, like, you never made my situation that my son was in CPS and whatnot. That was kind of my defining point of hitting rock bottom. What was your rock bottom? How bad did it get for you?
So is this the raw channel? Because
this is raw. This is raw. Everything has to be raw on this channel. Nothing
raw. So
as raw as you can get.
So when I started using, I immediately was not around my family, and I immediately was not. My daughter's in the background. Yes, we're doing the raw stuff, baby. You gotta go back in the room. Daughter. So for me, it was all about. My father was a cop. I didn't have a lot of supervision. I was a troubled kid. I dropped out of school right away. We lived outside of the city, but I was just enough, just to get into the city and get in some drama. And so back in the day when I was there, it was a lot of like raving, and so raving was big. So you could be out and there was an abundance of drugs, and there was always a massive place where there was a massive group of people that were high on drugs. Now, nobody really knew what anybody's story was, but everybody just wanted to dance and fuck. And me, all I wanted to do was steal and fuck. And so I would go around and I would burglarize, and that was just my big thing. I was always a thinker. I was always a dissector. I always wanted to make a device, how to pick a lock or how to do this. And so the meth afforded me the concentration and the duration of time.
Yeah.
I used to love it because also I was very police oriented from a young age. Right. My father was a cop. I knew the tactics of interrogation. I knew all of that. Right. So I knew how to piss them off. And so I was in a bunch of shit. I was writing bad checks at 14, cashing bad checks. I was, everything. So that turned into complete identity theft. And in the early 2000s in the city, it was all about, a couple of kids had figured out that the mailman can get into everyone's front door in the whole city. And we were a bunch of kids in identity crisis. So we naturally fit right to an identity thief. And so we would recreate this mail key. We reverse engineered a mail key. And then we had access to everything in the city. I mean, everything. If you ever had an apartment in the city and you know that the mailboxes are behind the front gate, well, how does the mailman get into everyone's gate? Well, there's a bunch of probably 8 or 9 mail keys. Now there's probably like 2. They redid them all. Now they make that key in Canada, but previously they used to make it here in the U.S. And so I had a bunch of people, and we were all fuck ups, man, and we were all high, and we used to do massive mail fraud. And I mean, we would steal, like, a good day for me easy was $10, $20, $30,000 in theft. But really the funny thing was that would all just go to the dope man for an 8-ball or a teener or an ounce, and so really where it all fell down for me was I was in custody, and I was in love with this girl. Right. Or I thought I was in love with this girl, and this girl she had a very troubled youth too. And we had done a string of Airbnbs. We were hooking up these Airbnbs because we didn't really have anywhere to live. And we figured out that, you could get an Airbnb with an email and just a phone credit card. And the security level wasn't really that good with all that. And so, I was in custody, and she said, and I was blue, right?
Yeah.
And so I went to custody, and then they offered me the ankle monitor. And so I thought, man, that's it. I got to get out. And everybody was telling me in jail, they're like, dude, don't get out on the ankle monitor. You're going to fuck it up. You're a drug addict. You're not going to last. You're going to fuck it up. You're going to fuck it up. And you're going to go back and come back, do all your time. I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do that. So I got out. I called up her. She was like, hey, I'm at this Airbnb. Come on over. Come see me. I called up the ankle monitor people. I said, hey, I need a 4-hour pass. I'm going to go over here and see my girl. And they were like, yeah, it doesn't really work that way. I was like, well, it's going to work that way today, And so I went over there. We ended up getting fucked up, getting wasted. Everything changed. I got angry at her, and I burglarized the place. And naturally it's like, nobody's staying faithful to anybody. I don't know. I'm in the meth scene, in the shadows of the city. I'm with the fucking criminals. Everybody is just living on a felony a day. It was like,
Tenderloin.
I was in the Tenderloin a lot, but I had to do business outside other places because I needed to go where there was people who had more money.
Yeah, exactly.
So I had to get out, and if I'm going to steal somebody's identity, fuck someone in the Tenderloin. I need somebody in the Marina. I need somebody in Heights. I need I need a quality mailbox, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I went over there. We got in this big argument, and I burglarized the place. And it was funny because looking back on it now, With the addict, any excuse will do.
Yes, yes. You look for a reason. Like I used to look for like to try to justify why I was going to go jack this dude or rob this dude. And you can find a reason if you're an addict.
Oh,
You
you
can
will.
find you'll find any
No,
reason to go get that dude.
I think that the universe gives you the reason to test
Hmm.
consistently. I just a side note, I had a kid call me the other day and he reached out to me on Facebook and he said, "Hey, are you still sober?" And I said, "Yes, I am still sober." If he would have looked at my page, he would have known that I post something about my sobriety every single day. But he just reached out to me randomly and he was like, "I'm fighting for my life, for my sobriety."
Yeah.
And I said, "All right, hey man, first off, thank you for reaching out, you know, and second off, let's meet up." And they said, "Okay, well, what do I do right now?" And I was like, "Oh, he's really raw, right? He doesn't even know the next step." And so I told him, I said, "Hey man, here's what you do. Whatever your conscience tells you to do, I want you to do that until we meet up. If it tells you to open the door for that lady, you do that. If it tells you to flush that sack, you do that. If it tells whatever you do, you do that. You're not going to understand it, but you do that." And then the next day we were going to meet up and he flaked. So a week later he calls me up and he goes, "Hey man, I'm really sorry I flaked. My sister was raped and situation with this and I couldn't do more for her and I feel like such a dirtbag." And I had to tell him, I'm like, "Hey, you know, you reached out to me for help, so I have to give you help the only way I received it. And I got to tell you that you're a piece of shit. Your sister was raped and you're making it all about you.
Wow, that's just on point, man.
Look how fucking find an excuse to destroy yourself because of something that happened to someone close to you. That's the most bitch shit ever." That is
Hmm.
the addict voice talking through and through that something tragic would happen to a loved one and you show up fucked up and it's all about you. And that is the crux of the fucking disease of addiction.
You know what? I just thought about something right now, and this has been helpful that you taught me, and I want you to talk about it. Now, in my fourth step, you had me write out my sexual ideal, right? Which sometimes people think. Remember, at first I put the body parts and everything. You maybe redo it, right? I'm like, well, you said sexual ideal, right? And then you said, no, like, what do you want as far as characters and so forth? And you had me write it all out, and then we went over it, and then you asked me, can you live up to that? And I thought about it. I'm like, no. In order to have your sexual ideal, you have to be your sexual ideal. You told me, man. I want you to elaborate a little bit about that because people sometimes, I think that was a turning point at that time because I started realizing that I can't hold people up to the standards I want if I can't hold myself up to those standards.
You know, everyone wants $1 million, but no one wants to become a millionaire. You have to acquire what you want by becoming that. Like in my sobriety, I've had a lot of success. And, you know, I've had a lot of success financially. I've had a lot of success in the gym. I've had a lot of success at work. And the one thing that I do and the one thing that I focus on to be successful is to become the individual that I view as successful, is to become the qualities. So if you become that, that will be attracted to you. Like I see a lot of people on Facebook and a lot, and it trips me out. I'm a watcher. I see a lot of people who always bitch about the same shit on Facebook. "Oh, I need a
Yeah.
break." And oh man, it's so political. And oh God, it's just so this and it's just so that. And they don't even realize that it's an algorithm that's tailored to what they're thinking. And life and the universe works in the same way. That's why the girl who always is looking for the guy that's not going to beat her, but all she can think about is the violence, that's why she always attracts that same guy. That's why we always seem to attract the same people because that's what we are. You
Wow.
want it all day. But if you're not it, you're going to get what you are. You're not going to get what you want. Right? And it's the same thing with recovery. People in recovery, I call them fucking tourists. Some people come into recovery and all they want to do is like, I went to Jamaica one time and the guy, like the white guy who gets like the Jamaican hat and he's walking around going, "Hey man." And so for anybody from
Yeah.
look at him, they go, "This dude's a fucking fake." Right? It's the same thing in recovery. people who are about recovery, who are about the fundamentals of recovery, who are about selflessness, who are about speaking to people at meetings, who are about going in there and destroying the ego, who are about going there and giving everything that they can give, they go in there and they see those people right away. It's like they're wearing a fake ass Jamaican beanie. They're like, this is the ego at its best. And what do? They steer away from them. You attract your tribe. You attract what you are. So when you're going for your sexual ideal, it's like, you know what I mean? You're going to walk up, you're going to show up, and it's like, yeah, it's like the guy's like, I really want a girl who's just faithful and loving and, you know, and just good. And you show up with the fat ass gold chain and like, you know, the car on rims, and that girl's not, you know, you're going to get the girl that you are. You're going to get what you're attracting.
Yeah.
And when it comes down to the sexual ideal is just an indicator of how to conduct yourself in all areas. And so that's why, yeah, my first sponsor told me that when I did my sexual inventory. He said, I wrote it down. I was like, okay, I want black hair.
Me too.
Got to have beautiful feet. You know what I mean? And he's like, okay, you know, are you that?
That was embarrassing when I did that. You're like, no, this isn't it. I had to redo it like 3 times.
And then he's like, so, but what is she like beyond that? You know, it's like when the condom's in the garbage can and the Netflix is over, what's left? And I'm like, oh, okay. You know, who's the woman I want to sit in a room with and hold her hand in silence? What does she embrace?
You know what, man? Like I still have those problems. Like to this day, you know what I mean? Like sometimes I think that it's hard to find that balance. Like Stansberry used to say, I'm still trying to find that balance. I get there and I go like this. I teeter-totter in my axis, man. It's really difficult, you know, to try. You know, I know what I want at times, right? But sometimes I can't even live up to it because I don't know what I'm doing half the time. If that makes sense.
Is living up to it. And living up to it without the ego, because the ego constantly needs to be fed, right? The ego is a violent eater and it always needs to be fed. But the selfless individual, all he wants to do is give. And in giving, he always gets fed. But the ego says, hey, we're not getting enough. We need to get. And so that is the acquire mindset. But the become mindset embraces everything and it gets the result immediately, right? And so that's because recently I've made a goal to become a millionaire, not because I want $1 million, but because I want to become what is needed to be a millionaire. And I've realized that most people want $1 million, but they can't even manage their fucking paycheck. And then they're always talking about less. But if you can't do more with less, then you're never going to do with more. That's why when you come to recovery and if you can't find gratitude at the bottom, you're never going to. Gratitude isn't found at the top. It's dragged from the bottom. And so that's why when early recovery, I got real grateful because I got with some people that weren't fucking around. They were like, hey, look, you're going to make every fucking apology. I don't care how comfortable it is. You're going to pay back every fucking penny. I don't care how broke you are. You're going to make a payment plan. I went in front of the judge that convicted me and asked, I had to get on calendar 2 years after I had been home. I was already off parole. I got off high control parole. My parole officer was actually the one who saved my life. And I called her up and I said, hey, I need to find my victims. And I need you to I need you to request the redactions be taken off these names so I can contact these people. And so my parole officer got me on calendar. I went in front of the judge that convicted me, and I had to ask the judge to take off the redactions to give me the names. And then the court actually contacted those people, and they said they wanted to have nothing to do with me, and they couldn't contact one woman. So the judge was so impressed. He was like, wait, you're here. You want to pay more? And I said, I have to pay more. I have to be separated from my money because for me, it was all about money.
Yeah.
And so I had to be separated from my money to put my ego in check. I had to starve the things in me that always wanted to be fed and feed the things in me that I always wanted to starve. And so my conscience was telling me, hey, someone is out there, and if they knew you had money, they would be fucking pissed. If some of your victims came up to you today and said, oh man, you're doing good with the fucking family and all this and that, and and I'm still rebuilding the shit that you did to me, or I still walk with a limp because you broke my leg, or I still have, this because of the concussion you gave me. I had to kill all of that. I had to get all that. And that's what the amends process was for me. And so I went in front of this judge, and the judge actually hired, they gave me a, what are those people, the sleuth people that find people, a private detective to find this woman. She ended up in Florida. And I wrote her a letter, and I said, I wrote her this 4-page letter, and it was like, hey, my name is Brian Bilbao. I burglarized your place, and I read what she did, this blog on it ended up, because it was an Airbnb scam, and Airbnb hadn't been scammed at that point. You can look it up, Airbnb nightmare. And
that's you?
Yeah. And so no one had ever been scammed on Airbnb before. They didn't have proper insurance. They didn't have, they didn't have everything in place. And so when she came back and everything was gone, she called the Airbnb and they just weren't equipped. They were like, what the fuck? And so I did my time. I came back and I wrote her a letter, and I was like, whatever I can do to make this right. And then I went to my whole life history, and my sponsor looked at the letter and he goes, okay, that's interesting. Take that first sentence and fuck the rest of these 4 pages. And I looked at it and I said, I'm so sorry. I can't what I've done to you. Anything I can do to make it right in your eyes, I'm willing to do. I said, that's what I sent to her? And he goes, yeah, that's what she sent to her. And so I sent it to her, and she said, she sent back word through a lawyer. She said, give me 30 grand. And I thought, fucking 30 grand. Like, I thought the letter was going to be moving, right? We early recovery. We're thinking the apology is going to be enough. Sometimes no. And I called up my sponsor, and he was laughing at me. And he was like, awesome. Now you get to see what's on the other side of this. It was easy to steal it. It only took 2 hours to steal it, but it might take you a couple years to pay it back. Are you still in? This recovery might take you years to build yourself. Are you still in? Because nothing great is built overnight. And so I went to my bank, which was the San Francisco Police Credit Union, and I got a loan for the 30 grand. And I paid them $360 a month. And I was only making $11 an hour, and I was paying $500 child support at the time.
Wow. Yeah, I went through the similar situation. I was working at Home Depot, having half my check took, and is it paid off? Is what I want to know.
So this day, has it paid off? My beautiful daughter's in the next room. I want to be careful about what I say about her mother. Her mother and I met in the rooms. And
yeah, I know. Yeah.
There's been some where she's gone out, she's gone back, and she's gone out. And what's funny is that one thing that I learned from her mother was alcoholism and addiction are the only diseases that require self-diagnosis. But once the proper treatment is applied, it leaves the patient in a life they couldn't have imagined. I always used to look at my baby's mama and say, you're an addict, you're an alcoholic, you should do this, you can't have my money, you're just another addict. And what was funny was she got sober without the rooms. And for a long time, I resented her for that. But there was a period where she left, and there was a period where she actually did relapse, and I actually ended up getting full custody.
Yeah,
and
I remember that.
You have to be careful about what you ask for in recovery, because you just might get it. And so when I was in early recovery, I got full custody, and I had a little child. And that full custody actually led me to believe that was my primary existence. And I ended up
bingo. Yeah.
I ended up suicidal in my first couple years of recovery. I ended up with a shotgun in my mouth, and I would go to the meetings, but I wasn't really present, and I was resentful. And really, I got everything I wanted. I wanted full custody because I didn't want to pay, and I had my money. And it was the worst fucking thing that could have happened to me, because it was killing me, and I didn't know how to deal with it. And it wasn't until a woman approached me, and actually she sponsored me for a great many number of years. And she taught me how to see the program in a different light. And she called me out of my shit. I remember I told her, I said, hey, you can't sponsor me. You have a you're a woman. And she said, sweetheart, I don't give a shit about your penis. Are you man enough to take direction from a woman? Are you man enough to take some advice from a woman? Because I tell you, what I'm looking at, you ain't no man. And she taught me how to be a man in the rooms.
Oh, wow.
She taught me how to take direction. She's a badass Jersey woman. And so actually it ended up where I went to my baby's mom and I made amends. And I gave her joint custody. And she would end up leaving again, and I would have to take custody again. But always the point of recovery is spiritual growth, to the point where when people come back who offend us, that we're not waiting to sting them or to get them. We're always trying to grow spiritually, so that when they come back, that we're in a place of growth where they can feel comfortable to fail around us and also admire us.
Yeah.
Because this work if we're a piece of shit, right? The program doesn't work if outsiders come in and say, yeah, but look how he moves. Look how he does his baby mama. Look how he doesn't pay his child support. Like, oh yeah, he's in recovery, but did you see his Facebook post about how he bitches about supporting his kid? Like, shut up and pay the fucking money. Quit being a piece of shit. Make more money. And when I paid that money, I realized that it opened up a new relationship with money for me. Last year, I doubled my income. I made almost $400,000. I bought a house in the Bay Area on a single income, and I don't even have a fucking high school diploma. I work for the highest paying union in the country. And you know what? I'm looking to start my own business in the next 5 years, and fuck that high paying union. I'm going to do my own shit.
That's right.
I bought into a recovery house. You know, it's like your vibe attracts your tribe. And if you have a vibe of success and being useful, we don't get paid. One thing I realized is we don't get paid for money. We get paid for value.
Wow. This is an awesome interview, bro. Keep on going.
If we got paid for money, then we could just sit at home and get a check. The reason why you make, one of my coaches told me that, he said, hey, Brian, the reason why you make $15 an hour is because you're a $15 an hour motherfucker. If you don't want to be a $15 an hour motherfucker, go be more useful. Go be more of an inspiration. Your level of income will never exceed your level of personal development. And so for me, AA and NA and my program of recovery was always raising my level of personal development. But by the time I wanted to get into the real world and do some real world shit, I thought that it was a different principle base.
Wow.
Right. And it's not. It's always develop a strong relationship, and then you will get back exponentially.
Man, that's what said. There's a couple of things I want to go before we got a little bit of time still, but I want to focus on this fentanyl addiction. What are you seeing with this fentanyl addiction nowadays? And what is the first step that these people have to do that are suffering from it?
So the first step always so in hindsight, a lot of people will tell you a lot of different shit, but if you're here and you're watching and if you have a fentanyl addiction or a meth addiction or a coke addiction or a heroin addiction, I just want to tell you that everything you want and everything that's calling you within your consciousness is on the other side of you getting comfortable being uncomfortable. People always think that they need to scratch the itch. Just because it itches doesn't mean you have to scratch it. And it's going to be fucking uncomfortable. When I first got sober, man, I was crawling out of my fucking skin. So I thought that was the reason why I had to use. And then that physical feeling would produce a mental feeling that would trick me, right? So you have to really see that, okay, if your conscience is telling you that you are built for more, you cannot choose to be less. It's going to be a fight. I've never done fentanyl. I don't know if it has a physical addiction. I don't know if it has this. I don't know if it has that. But I've recovered with a lot of people off of heroin, opiates, meth, everything. And the discomfort is going to be there. But you have to realize that is part of the journey. In the end, that discomfort is going to be your biggest fucking victory.
Yes.
You have to realize that when the pain sets in and the anxiety sets in and your body's going through it, you just have to tell yourself, this is what recovery feels like. This is what early recovery feels like. This is the glory. This is the glory. This is the shift between you always scratching that itch and being a selfish little bitch to transitioning into something greater. It's like you're being reborn. And people always quit before the magic happens. They
Yes.
always quit, man. They always quit when it gets so rough. It's not going to be rough forever. It's not going to be rough forever. It's going to transfer into something else. You should go through that for the simple fact that if you went through that and it's not going to last forever, that you could take somebody else through that. Can you imagine? I don't know what it's like to detox off fentanyl, but if somebody was detoxing off fentanyl and made it through, man, they're so powerful. That is one of the most powerful motherfuckers. Fentanyl, I was reading, has a higher
Yeah, it's crazy.
rate than, I mean, it's killing more people 18 to 24 than anything.
Yep.
It sounds so intensely sexy to me to be the motherfucker who pushes through that, because nothing lasts forever. This life doesn't last forever. These good times don't last forever. These bad times don't last forever. And there is a probably some scientist has it down to the exact hour when the physical part of it will start to diminish. And then it's really just a mental game. And then really one of the things that came for me was my inner conversation. I realized that my inner conversation was always so fucking selfish. Depression is the disease of the selfish. And really it's like, it's
Wow. That
what
right there resonates with me, because I think, man, this is helping me out a lot right now.
Because it's all about you.
Mm-hmm.
It's really all about you. And the funny thing is about depression is it's aimed at canceling the conversation. Right? Said, oh, like, I'm depressed. And then they go, oh, well, did you do? Oh, you don't know. It's like, no, you're depressed. You're just thinking about you. How the fuck are you gonna? I mean, you're all about you. Get out of you. That's the solution to depression. You know, I was reading a book. It's called Man's Search for Meaning. It's about a dude who was in the World War II camps. And what they used to do is they used to practice a visualization practice about speaking to a stadium full of people about how they made it through. Can you imagine being in a Nazi concentration camp when everything has been stripped from you? Everyone is on the brink of death. And the one thing that's keeping you going is the power of you speaking to a bunch of people to inspire them of how you made it through.
Wow.
So your inner conversation can give you strength. If you start to wake up every day and go, you know what? I know I need to do this. I know I need to get sober for my people. I know I can do this. I can do this. It's going to fucking be painful. It's going to be uncomfortable, but I can fucking do this. I can do anything. I can do anything. If you can keep that conversation with yourself, man, that's more valuable than trillions of dollars. I would take a powerful inner conversation over $1 million any day. Because if I could talk to myself like I'm a champion when I'm down and I'm feeling like I'm not, when I could tell myself when these other thoughts come in and go like, oh, you're just a piece of shit, or oh, you're just whatever comes into your head that makes you, because addiction is funny, and the pathway to that first hit or that first shot or that first line is always funny. People really need to examine that, because really what it usually boils down to is a negative inner conversation, right? A lifetime of abuse, and then a lifetime of negative thinking, which produces just a shitty overall feeling. And then we seek something to give us something that feels better.
Self-medicate.
You know, addicts lack discipline, and it's just easier to develop a physical addiction. So somebody who's coming off of fentanyl, hey, it's gonna suck in the beginning, but that suck is gonna be your foundation of power.
Yeah.
It's necessary. It's not supposed to be easy.
You know, for me, right, I think the hardest part of my recovery wasn't the first 90 days, because I needed it. I wanted it. I was fucking surrendered. I think it was when I got around 2.5 to 3.5 years, 4 years. That was one of my most difficult times of dealing with things because the I had so much norm doing everything I was doing was just became normal. You know what I'm saying? Now I'm living doing something different, and I'm trying to adapt as what I think people want to see from me. But I'm not happy in myself at the same token. I'm taking care of everybody else but myself. That was, I mean, early in recovery. I wasn't going out, I wasn't dating, I wasn't doing anything. And it almost destroyed me at one point. You know what I'm saying? Where I almost went back out there, man. And God willing, I got through it. You know, what do you think the best solutions? Have you ever experienced anything like that? I know
Uh,
you mentioned earlier, but
Lulls in sobriety? Yeah, man. I was that guy at 2.5 years who had a shotgun in his mouth and a 2-year-old baby in the next room. I used to beat myself in front of my kid when she was crying because I didn't know how to take care of her. And it's funny is that she still remembers this to this day. I worked so hard this day to communicate with my daughter and just tell her everything. Just tell her everything. Hey, you know what? Like I told my daughter at one point when I had about 4 years, I said, sweetheart, if you ever feel unsafe, you need to tell me, time out, and we'll get you over to grandpa's or we'll get you over to mom's.
yeah,
Because I know myself and I have issues that I didn't really try to explain it to her too much, but I'm like, I'm working on myself and I have these anger issues. So if you ever feel unsafe, you tell me and I will get you to somewhere safe. Because I had to let her know that I'm not perfect
no, I get,
and
yeah,
am extremely fucked up. I had massive rage issues and anger issues that I carried over, and it's no wonder that I had such a bad addiction problem. Is because all that rage just needed to be just capped.
yeah,
And for me, the answer was just continuing to spiritually grow. So really, that became the highlight focus of my recovery of my life, not of my recovery, was to get connected to something that's beyond comprehension. And in the steps, it says sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him. So it doesn't say found through prayer and meditation. It says sought. So for me, that tells me, okay, this is going to be a constant thing of seeking.
yes.
I'm going to be like, I found God and that's it.
I've always said this, right? The need for a higher power is more important than the proof of its existence.
If you understood your higher power, you wouldn't need it anymore. You know? And the higher power, I think it's in everything. And I read something, and I'm not really a biblical dude, but I read something along the lines of it said, "In the beginning was the Word," and so I thought, shit, man. So in the beginning was my word, and my word. And then I read something that said something that Jesus said. He said, "Lift a stone, and I am there. Split a piece of wood, and I am there." So everything is within. The Spirit of God is within me. And that's when I realized, oh shit, what if my conscience is the voice of God? Really? And I'm like, well, that means that God lives in me and He's giving me the direction from within. And all I need to do is do the next step. And I never get the whole path or the whole journey. Only the next step is illuminated. And so as long as I take the next step and the next step and the next step and the next step, even if I stumble forward, when I fall forward, I end up in a better position when I'm seeking that voice. When I choose to be less and I seek another voice, then all things are off, because then the path is confusing. Then there's nothing, and the volume goes down on that voice. Then I'm confused about which voice I need to keep. So for me, my recovery these days is about taking the next step that's in alignment with what I think. My job is to become the reflection of what my God is. And my God speaks to me through my conscience. And it's always been there my whole fucking life. And I've just made it confusing and mucked up with other voices, and other things came into the mix. But think about it. When you were a kid, you knew exactly what you loved and what you wanted to do. But
Yeah,
then you grow up and you adopt other people's belief systems and other people's this and that. And it's just the waters get real muddy.
yeah,
But that voice of God is still always within you. But it only gives you the next fucking step. It won't give you the whole journey. It only gives you the next steps. That's why they call them the steps. That's why you take a step and you take a step, and so people get ahead of themselves in recovery and they go, "Oh man, I don't want to make amends." Hey, don't get ahead of yourself. You never know where you're going to be. When I was making that payment for that $30,000 to that woman, I literally used to do the numbers and say, "Okay, 15% interest. I'm never going to get out of this debt." I paid that loan off 3 years early, and I bought a fucking house the next year. The year
Wow.
that I had applied to and got my interview canceled because I went in there, I was drunk, and then I did some meth, and then I was too high, so I smoked some weed. And when I went in the interview, I was so fucked up that I had sweated through my shirt, and they stopped the interview and they go, "Hey, it's not going to work out." They called me 6 years later and they said, "Hey, you interviewed 6 years ago. You still interested in being in this?" And I was like, "Wait, what? You're calling me?" And I and then I went back in for another interview, and what was standing in front of them was something that they said, "Okay, yeah, I we like that." And so, I mean, it's like, shit, I'm gonna buy another house next year.
Man, keep on doing what you're doing. I want anything, man. This interview, I'm gonna tell you right now. I've done a lot of interviews. I've interviewed rappers, celebrities, authors, all kinds of people. Right. This has got to be my most favorite interview I've done, and probably going to be one of the most impactful.
I'll
I
tell you
really,
the highlight of my recovery. My daughter came to my daughter. I picked up my daughter the other day, and I texted my baby's mama and I said, "Hey, you know what? I just want to tell you that I'm really proud of you." And and uh, and my daughter was born as a result of just a one night. Like we never. And I'll never forget. She came to me and she goes, "What am I gonna tell this? What am I gonna tell my kid when I grow up? She's gonna think I'm some kind of slut." It's like, "Oh, are we supposed to be together?" And I said, "No, we're gonna tell her that we loved each other enough that we wanted each other to have the lives that we wanted, and we're just gonna guide her through." And my daughter came to me the other day and she goes, "You know what? Mom said to me that she really loves and appreciates you." The fact that my daughter can get teary eyed at a relationship that most people would look at and go, I put my daughter in a private school. You're looking at a dude who couldn't get out of the Tenderloin for 10 years if it wasn't on a prison bus. You're looking at a dude who went to the judge and said, "Hey, give me 2 strikes today and let me walk because I needed a bag of dope that was in my wallet so fucking bad." And today it's like, I'm a success. I like to think I'm a success story, but my successes don't lie in the money and the job and the career and the house. And, it lies in looking at my kid and my kid saying, "You know what? I'm proud of my dad."
that's
Like,
what's up, man.
I want.
This has been an awesome interview, man. I want to give a shout out to Project 90 first and foremost. We're both Project 90 alumni. You know what I'm saying? Brian, is there anything else you want to say before we end this interview, man? This has been one of my favorite interviews I've ever done.
You know, always. This isn't normal for me to do interviews like this. I'm used to being in an environment where people can approach me and they can speak to me and they can talk to me. So if anybody contacts you to and they would like to get in contact with me, I would like you to make that available to them. It's like
Yes.
one teach one, and
You know,
we learn better to do better to teach better, and I learn more when I take somebody through the steps, or when I take the journey with somebody side by side. So if anybody's out there, anybody was watching this and they want to know, what meetings I'm at, or if they want to grab a cup of coffee, or you need someone to talk to, hit me up.
most definitely. I'll make myself available, and there'll be those, man. Someone else made the same suggestion because I got a lot of people who are in recovery that support all the channels I got, man. So yeah, I like this, man. This is the right direction of this channel. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, hey, I appreciate everything that you came on, man. This is gonna be very impactful, man. Your message is gonna be out there, and for those that are suffering out there in the streets, man, look at the man. He made almost $400,000 last year. You know what I'm saying? Bought a house. I mean, he was, man. At one time, I know a little bit other stories. I mean, he just did a well thing, but he's been through some shit himself. You know what I mean? And hey, much respect, much love, man. And I want you to know that you really helped me on my journey. You know what I'm saying? That's why I wanted you to be one of the first ones on the show.
Bro, you put in the work, man, and that's really what That's what makes it so awesome to see you out here, bro. I love you, man. And yeah,
All right,
it's a
brother.
wonderful journey. Thanks for
Love you
having
as well. I'm gonna upload this, and I'll let you know what time I'm gonna drop this, because you can tell all the alumni to watch it.
I do not want to watch it, but I'll tell somebody else to watch it.
Okay. All right. Have a good one, brother. Enjoy your day.
All right.
All right. Thanks.